Hello and welcome back to a New Pace podcast. I'm your host, Leslie Andrew. I'm an artist and art therapist, and today I'm celebrating episode 50 of a New Pace podcast, and I'm so proud to share how that has been. Some of the lessons that I've learned, some of the themes, and some of the so many different stories and conversations that I've had with the different guests that have come on and different themes that I've talked about, like when I've done the solo episodes. But I just couldn't help but use episode number 50 to really celebrate where we've come from, where we, as in me and the guests, and you as the listener, or if you're watching on YouTube, you as a viewer have come. Because I believe that when you're listening to this, you are engaged, you are part of this, you are stepping into a new pace yourself. And that's the mission, like helping people to express themselves, helping people to navigate challenges in their lives by taking time to pause, act, create, and empower. And that idea of stepping into a new pace can be really challenging for a lot of people. It can feel disempowering sometimes when there's been challenges and they're having to do something very different, but then making a choice, an intentional choice to pause when you need to, because you've chosen to pause, rather than forcing to stop, and then leaning into acting, create, and empower. And with this, the reason why this is so important as well is that the way that this podcast has evolved over the last few years has maybe modeled this, has modeled a new pace, modeled changing kind of ways of me talking about things, and being braver, being a bit more courageous to have guests on the podcast as well as me talking. The difference between talking like just audio using my phone compared to doing something on video, and all of these kind of small things build up to something big. And it's so easy to forget where we were, like some time ago, and to think maybe we've not made a massive amount of progress. But I'm guilty of that, of looking back and thinking, oh, I haven't got very far. But actually this is me sharing with you that actually, like, sharing that gratitude and that self-pride of hitting that milestone of 50 episodes. So thank you for listening, thank you for joining in, thank you if you've left a review or anything like that, any words of encouragement from you. I really, really appreciate you. So in this episode, I'm gonna do a run through of the themes that have come up throughout the podcast, the type of people that I've been working with, the types of conversations, and some of the things that I've learned about being a podcast host, as well as the things that I've learned about navigating life and all that kind of comes up with. So back in 2021 was when I first started to do a podcast. It had a different name. There were a few episodes. It was just on my phone. It didn't really get very far. I felt really awkward about it. It felt I didn't really know how to speak. I didn't really have much tech going on. I did make a little cute little jingle, so it goes dun 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 dun, dun, and then it was creative and creative. So it's, do you want to be creative? Do you want to be active? Creative, active, creative, active, creative. Yeah. So that was my thing back in 2020 or 2021. And then it didn't really amount to anything because there was a big brand out there, big companies, global company that used that creative as one of their trademark things. So I ditched that, and then because I was doing a lot of hiking, I carried on the podcast and changed it to Hiking Art Therapy, Hikartopy, which was fair enough. That was kind of cool. Still talking about art therapy and talking about different things. I had an episode about Kilimanjaro and failing to reach the top, and that's still a story that I would like to tell more about, talk more about. But then I couldn't really say Hikartopy. It felt clunky. It felt like it didn't really align with what I was doing either, because for not long after that, I wasn't really doing that much hiking, and it felt like just too much. So we got rid of that, and like a new pace evolved because of me and my health stuff and some of the things that I was having to do because of my own health things, physical health, like struggles with anemia, struggles with fibroids, struggles with then having a hysterectomy and then needing to step into a new pace, and at various times. So a new pace podcast started around 2023 with 10 episodes, and most of the episodes, I think actually pretty much all of them that I'd recorded before, I may be in the archives, you might be able to listen to, but they're generally not part of the main show. And then actually did 10 episodes back in 2023, and then I just shelved that because I couldn't really see like the way forwards. It didn't feel that much of a priority. And then beginning of 2025, I was at an event and there was lots of people talking about setting goals and what will you do, and there was an encouragement, and I set a goal to restart my podcast, and doing it as solo episodes felt good because I could showcase some of the skills and showcase some of the knowledge about art therapy and talk about my art as well and talk about those things. So it felt like a useful thing. And then fast forward to June, when I was just maybe kind of wanting something else, and I was having kind of thoughts about public speaking. I was having thoughts about putting myself out there in different ways, and I'd already kind of like wondered about having guests on the show, but my reservation to having that was that I didn't feel that it was technically viable or ready to do that I didn't really have things set up to policies and like forms and things and the technical stuff to have a guest on. I didn't really know what to do. But then when somebody just gave me that little nudge to go, you should have some guests on your show, or you should start your own podcast, because I was saying that, how can I be more visible? And somebody suggested going on other people's podcasts, and they said, well, you should start your own podcast. And it says, hey, actually, I've got a podcast. Well, get yourself some guests on, double down on it, do more. And that was the kick that I needed. That was the let's do this. And I made, I suppose, part of before getting into the having guests on, I did have a little bit more of energy behind the podcast because I was making things, I was reflecting, I was kind of going, let's get back into this, a new pace. And I was saying, I want to have at least 100 episodes, whether they're weekly episodes, whether they're fortnightly, whether they're monthly, doesn't matter. My mission is to get at least 100 episodes. And here we are, halfway through. And so thank you for listening. So the themes that have come up, I have had guests on the show from artists, from therapists, counsellors, personal trainers. Who else have we had? We've had friends, comedians, we've had people that have swam the English Channel, we've had authors on the show, lots of different people. And every time I speak with somebody, part of me kind of feels like a flutter of, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm actually speaking with this person. They are amazing. And then I also have a this is really cool. We are all so connected as humans, and we can have these normal conversations, and we can navigate a conversation. And isn't it interesting how, humans can talk with each other, and like, how is that such a novel thing? And yeah, to be fair, I live by myself, and a lot of the conversations that I end up having are either just friends that are just very casual, family that's just very casual, or work that's very formal and very much about me helping somebody. And with clients, it can be a mixture. But then having a podcast conversation becomes more reflective and becomes more just curious. There's a curiosity, and I just really love it. So I've really enjoyed having conversations, especially when people have asked me questions, when they've turned the tables round and gone like, actually, before you ask that question, can I just ask you something else? Or what do you think about that? And like, that's, it's good old fashioned talking. So who needs AI when we've got like our own chat? So the themes, pause. So we've like this idea of resting and relaxing, like taking time to rest. So I spoke to Mags, like one of the first guests was Mags from Mags Relax, and like that kind of just is a big nod to kind of allowing yourself to relax and feel pampered and feel nurtured. And like, what came up for her was about how there's certain things that she finds really relaxing and that other people might not. And there's things that she does for other people, but she finds a little bit cringeworthy. And from a sensory point of view, it doesn't really match. And so there's lots of things about taking time to relax and just rest. And, mentioning different people throughout that. There's lots of people that were using their own skills as ways of like relaxing themselves. So another theme that came up throughout different things was sort of looking within, like taking time to pause and look within. So rather than pause and physically pause, or as well as, there's a chance to kind of really lean in and just trust your intuition and trust that kind of that voice from inside, whether it's your gut, whether it's your whatever it is, like leaning into your heart and leaning into something that kind of maybe allowing yourself, giving yourself permission to pause, I think is maybe one of those big things. So, and exploring things like nature is a really good way of pausing. But then like themes like the activities that people do to pause can also be part of what they do to take action. So when it comes to sort of action, I've spoken with lots of different people. So I've spoken with counselors, spoken with personal trainers, spoken with entrepreneurs. And on one hand, something that I've noticed is that on one hand, there's a little bit of we need to get yourself organized and prep things. So maybe being prepared so that you can, how's the words? My words aren't working today, so we'll just pretend there's a picture, blah, 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 I'm drawing the picture, and then we're going to get the words. So say like if you're going to go out for a run, then you would have the trainers prepped the night before, so you can be, that will habit stack, so helping you to actually do the thing, to take action. So that idea of being prepared and having things aligned in your direction, as well as thinking about like what you actually what's been aligned action for you and what's important for you. So taking action that's aligned with your values and your beliefs. And part of that space to pause, there's a lot of people I'm speaking to about actually, like, it's only when you pause that you realize what matters to you. So it's only when you actually lean back and pause and breathe and take time just to think and feel that you go, you know what? None of that matters, but this matters, and I'm going in that direction. And I'm literally kind of leaning in that direction. And whether you have kind of a vision at the end, like a goal at the end, or not, the important thing is heading in the direction. So following that compass point. So themes for ACT is about kind of those small steps, when to say no and when to go. Like, at what point is it, yes, we're all in, let's do this? And what point is it just like a tentative thing? And like that as a theme is really interesting, because I think that there's an acceptance of it being challenging to take action on things sometimes, at the same time as even though it's challenging and even though it's okay to go slow sometimes we do need to break the state and do something a bit braver. So, and it's so when I've been having conversations with people, so some of the ones that when we're talking about action, it's like Martin's podcast and Mark's podcast and Seshing's podcast, where we're talking about aligned action and talking about productivity and all these different things. These kind of things are relevant in the context of knowing yourself and in the context of knowing what matters to you and what your energy levels are, and I suppose what direction you're heading into, what your priorities are. So leaning into creativity, leaning into pause, act, create. It's been really nice to speak to, super nice to speak to people who are crafting and who are making art, who are creative counselors, for instance, like Sam, or and say other artists. And it's been super nice to hear about their processes and to hear some of the different reasons why they're painting or reasons why they're making something. And some people that I've spoken to, we've intentionally spoken purely about the craft. We've not gone into any big complex background stories or mindset things like big theories. We've not needed to do that. We've just kind of gone, okay, tell us about your art, tell us about the things that you're making. And that feels cool, because we don't have to be going into some deep and meaningful story every single time we open our mouths. Sometimes we need to go, hey, I made this, and that feels fun. So especially when one of the things that I said right at the start was that I want in this podcast to be normal people, normal conversations, me as, just a normal person navigating life, having a bit of a self-employed business and doing all of this on the side as well, and being an artist, being a therapist, and then going, oh, I'm not an expert in everything. I'm not kind of super rich or super successful or super fit and healthy. It's just normal. And from that start, I feel that those conversations that we've had have been a nod to that, and there's not kind of any filter that you have to have achieved this, that, and the other. Like, I see all my guests as the same. To be fair, some of my guests have been scary. That might sound really weird because they're lovely, but some of my guests have been a bit like, oh my gosh, you're so important, you've got this amazing thing going on, like how can I possibly hold enough space for you to share all of that? And but then actually when we've met, when we've come on, we've just been human to human, so it's been really nice in that sort of sense. So just people talking to each other, and that's what was good about speaking to other artists, speaking to people about their stories. So stepping into like feeling empowered, what feeling empowered means, what empowering other people means, and they're a little bit different, really. Feeling empowered can be a lot about choice. You can feel a lot about boundaries. It can feel a lot about feeling positive. It can emotions, confidence. It can also feel about leaning into strengths, like doing more of what you love and allowing yourself to do more of what you love. But then also empowering other people can be about that compassion. So if we're compassionate towards ourselves, do as I say, not as I do, sometimes at least anyway. If we're compassionate about ourselves, then we can be compassionate towards other people, and we can feel empowered by those actions that we take and those choices that we make, however big or small. So that, in a nutshell, is those 4 things. And what I was often doing is speaking to people about their area of genius, as well as then asking them about what stepping into a new pace means to them. And for some people, they would say, oh, actually, it's so important to pause. That there's so many people that would say pause is the thing that really stands out to me. That why are people not able to pause in such a, when there's so much rushing around, that prioritizing that's important. And then, like being able to navigate all the other 3. So almost like the pause bit, to me so far, has been the strongest element out of all of those things. And then the other 3, act, create, and powers, almost have like equal weighting. And that's just so far. And it may just be that the order of the word pace prioritizes pause anyway. So we've got a bias there. But it's been really nice to hear from people about how they view that, especially when someone's maybe thought, I'm not very creative, but then after a little bit of reflection, they've come up with ways that they are creative. It's not just about making art and crafts, but they've maybe been creative in the way that they're cooking and things like that, or the way that they're organising their week or problem solving. And like, it's been nice to see how somebody that's maybe not typically creative talks about creativity. So fun episodes to listen to. Listen back. Go back and binge. Go back and have a listen. Even like if you don't have like loads and loads of time, you can put us on high speed and listen through and have a catch up. But it's well worth having a catch up, especially if you see an episode that really stands out to you, that's worth listening to. So overall, this idea of stepping into a new pace is the reason why I've been able to connect so well and feel so joyful about having so many different guests on. So some podcasts have literally like a really minute topic, whereas this is really broad, but it doesn't feel too broad that we are maybe too vague. So a lot of it is about kind of changes. So things like some of the themes, some of the overall themes have included sort of turning 50, like changing, like growing up, getting a bit older, perimenopause sort of themes, like what it's like to have a health condition that has such a big impact. Grief, that's been huge. There's been lots of things about grief and disenfranchised grief when it's maybe not felt as being the sort of understood sense of grief. Changes in country, changes in job, changes in habits, lifestyle habits, like giving up alcohol, or like all those kind of things. So many things, and often things about perceptions as to what being human is. Like, should I be doing this? Should I be doing that? Do I need to just stepping into a new pace mean we're doing the same thing, but we're just seeing it differently? So there's loads of different themes with that. So many themes, but also so many different people, approaches, ways of being, from somebody be like an artist, somebody with a book, lots of writers, an English Channel swimmer, we've got marathon runners, a whole mixture, people that are talking about coming back from injury after they, like guiding people, like coaching people to come back from injury and then go back and do different races, which is really inspiring. And yeah, it just feels really good to be able to sort of do more. There's been times when I have collaborated with people, like where I've then been a guest on their podcast and then they've come on my podcast, and that's been a lot of fun. And there's been times when I've had set collaborations come on. So there's maybe been one person and then they've come on with their business partners, and that's been good as well. And there's quite a few guests that I would probably, for sure, have back again that we've already said, next time you're on, we can talk about this. Next time you're on, we can talk about this. And I think this is what keeps it real. It keeps it kind of human to human conversations rather than just being on a mission to get, like, you know, the best guests in the world. Who's the most famous person of the war of them all? Who can I have? Who's going to make like things look better? And it's, which I think a lot of podcasts do that. And to be fair, in some ways, I think I'd maybe be a bit overwhelmed if I had like somebody. I can't even think of people who would come on my podcast that I'd sort of go, But I think even just people that are one step ahead of me in some ways, I've found a little bit intimidating, in the sense that, hang on a minute, am I going to be able to do this professionally enough? I think that's the thing. Am I going to be able to help, like, ensure that they can showcase themselves effectively? Am I going to forget how to talk halfway through? And these anxieties are just sort of a personal thing, and the sort of thing that a guest might have as well. But yeah, let's keep this going. So another little statistic, that not stats so much, but just some numbers. So there's been like going global, in the interest of going global. So we've been, because it's all online, just like recording online with the video and with the audio, I can obviously see people from different countries, which is really cool. Can you imagine, like, it's like sitting in your room, and the novelty of that when sort of people first started using these online platforms was immense. But then now it just feels like it's kind of normal. And how many things in the future will be like that are just new now, and it feels out of our comfort zone now, but then in 5 years' time we've just been so normal. So there's been 17 people from the UK. There has been 3 people from the USA, different states, 1 person from France, 1 person from Sweden, 1 person from New Zealand, and 2 people from Australia, one of which moved to Australia. He was in the UK when we recorded, but I'm counting it as Australia because I think that kind of feels better because he's in Australia now. So if anyone's listening that's like wanting to come on, you like the idea, you like these themes, you wanting to contribute to the topics, wanting to share some of your experiences, some of your wisdom, some of your challenges, and some of the breakthroughs, or literally just want to talk about something that kind of feels aligned right now, reach out to me and we can book you on to come and talk with me on a New Pace podcast. And there we go. So episode flaming 50. Yes, thank you everyone for listening, and I hope that you found some interest and value in listening to this kind of summary episode. And if you are new here, have a little listen to some of the previous episodes, have a listen, start yourself kind of checking in with the different themes, and I will speak to you soon. Take care, thank you so much, and bye for now.